Good evening and welcome to the Sound Off Show. My name is Linda Kirker. I host the program and I welcome you to the show tonight. I'm so glad you joined us. Before I introduce my guest, I just have something short here to share with you. This is a quote from Thomas Jefferson. Quote, "If we are to guard against ignorance and remain free, it is the responsibility of every American to be informed." Unquote. In other words, we need to know what's going on and stand up and speak out when we see things happening that are not productive or positives for our state and nation. That is our job. Every single citizen has a responsibility to be knowledgeable and to take action if at all possible. That's our job. That's what protects our rights and our freedoms as individuals, not state control or federal control over our lives, but making our own decisions. Okay. That's my short opener, shortest one in a long time. But I'm eager to introduce my guest. I'm sure that many of you know who he is. Carl Rosenquist of Georgia, Vermont, a state representative for several years now. Carl, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Linda.
Glad to have you here. And we both live in Georgia, and I've known, well, we served together, actually.
2001, 2002.
Yes, yeah.
We served together.
Yeah, and that's where we, I guess, got acquainted for the first time.
Exactly.
So, Carl, why don't you tell us about what was your title at the place in Georgia where you worked?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was hired by Wyeth International to site and then hire the staff for nutritional plant.
Speak up. Speak
up? Really? Okay. To hire the staff and then manage the plant in Georgia, Vermont. The nutritional plant makes infant formula, and so that was back a number of years ago. But I was the managing director of that facility for 17 years.
Wow, that's a big job.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Thank you.
And then you went into the legislature.
No, yeah. Well, I retired from Wyeth, and then I ran for the Senate. Actually, twice. I mean, once in 1998, and then, and let's see, when was the other time? And then 2002. Okay. And so I had the representative term in between those two times I ran for the Senate.
Okay. Now, you serve on which committee?
I serve on Human Services.
Okay.
And have for the last 4 years, and I expect that I'll be back on that same committee, but I won't know that until the 6th of January. Okay.
Well, we'll all know then, won't we?
Exactly.
Human Services is a broad term. That could include so many things.
Well, it does. I mean, it's a very broad-reaching organization. I mean, the Department of Human Services is the largest department in state government, as far as I know, and we probably
the most employees.
Yeah, and we spend probably half of the budget. Okay, on all those services because it includes DCF, the Department of Families and Children. It involves child care. It's funny. It looks like I'm talking loud, but
okay. Well,
right. So
maybe I need hearing aids.
Oh, okay. All right. So, the what do you call it? Public health services are under the umbrella of human services as well. So it's a very broad-reaching organization, like you said, and Mike Smith is our secretary reporting to the governor on human services. And we sort of have oversight over the organization from a legislative standpoint. And one of the things we worked very hard on as the end of last year approached, of course, we were in 2 sessions, the first session, and then we came back because of the COVID situation. And we spent quite a bit of time on allocating so much of the money that came from the federal government for the virus relief funds to help our citizens. In fact, Vermont, I believe, was only second to Nevada or one of the other small states in terms of the per capita distribution of COVID funds in the entire United States, on the order of $7,500 per capita. So that doesn't mean it went to you or me, but if those services went to
agencies,
to agencies for unemployment benefits, extra money for childcare, because we had people that they couldn't go to work if they didn't have childcare, and the kids weren't in school, so there was a lot of redistribution of funds to allow much of that to happen. So the strict COVID relief dollars was like $1.2 billion. Okay.
Billion.
Yeah. And if you add all the other funds, which include the unemployments and things like that, you're looking at probably $5 billion
Holy mackerel.
came in from the federal government. So I think Vermonters should be very thankful that we were able to avail ourselves of that COVID relief money.
So who decides how that money is distributed?
Well, it depends. That's what I'm saying. Our committee spent quite a bit of time on that, because money that was allocated for some of the, from the federal government for some of the human service aspects, it was our responsibility to make recommendations to the governor, or the governor was also making his own recommendations, or his human service staff. And then we would negotiate, and most of the time come to agreement, and that's the way the money was divided up and went through many of our agencies that really perform most of the human service work for the state.
But the money actually went out into the communities.
Exactly. Well, a lot of it to the service agencies themselves, or to the recipients of services, depending upon what the need was. Okay. So as they say, child care, certain amount of money was diverted into enhanced child care payments, if you will, for people that needed it. So it was quite a lot of money. I don't think most people realize how much money came into the state.
I had no idea.
To help us through this pandemic. And one thing I wanted to say, in fact, if you
Sure.
Was that I'm just so thankful that we're to this point in time right now where we, with incredible speed, that vaccine was developed, and starting yesterday and today, some of those aliquots of vaccine are right here in the state of Vermont. So at the main hospital in Burlington, and I believe Northwest got some today. So, and they're starting to inoculate their frontline staff. So I think it's incredible. It's something most people didn't anticipate we'd be at this point. It doesn't mean we're over everything yet, but I mean, it's pretty incredible that we have a vaccine that'll be delivered to essentially everybody that wants it.
So it's preventive, supposedly.
I'm sorry?
It's supposedly preventive to keep you from getting the virus.
Correct. I mean, it's like the way I understand it, it's like the current flu vaccine to some extent, except that one seems to change on a yearly basis. So they do their wonders and come up with the best mix they can, and they put a vaccine together. And it seems to have been pretty effective at combating the normal flu, for which we don't have what do you want to call it, a specific vaccine for it. It's sort of a mixture. This one, the way I understand it, is very specific for the COVID-19 virus. So, and it's 95% effective, as according to Pfizer and Moderna. They both are 95%.
Are they American companies, both of them?
Moderna, I'm not 100% sure, but I believe so. But Pfizer is, but they did it in concert with their, I think, German subsidiary. So there was some influence from, the research facilities abroad as well. So no, it's incredible that we could be at this point at this time.
Well, I truly hope that it is a productive and a really positive effect that it's going to have on the people who receive it. I personally have had a negative experience with immunization in the past, left a long-lasting effect. And so I have qualms.
Yeah, no, I understand that. And I think, people are supposed to discuss their past history relative to vaccine inoculation and all. And then, at the moment anyway, there's some speculation that it might be more of a forced procedure, but I can't believe that we're going to come to that.
This is
it's going to be a volunteer.
This is the United States.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying there is some talk that
I know.
Because of the public health aspect of it, But I'm hoping it'll all be volunteer, and if you want it, you get it. Or granted, it's going out to frontline workers first. Nursing home patients will get the next amount. So it'll be a while before probably somebody like me. But again, they'll probably also do to some extent to some of the older people in our community. I might qualify in that one.
Well, I know I would. Well, hopefully that will be a great positive with this whole COVID experience that we've been going through. When you think about, Carl, all of the areas of our lives that have been adversely affected by this Chinese virus. Everything from the U.S. debt that's risen to, what, 30 trillion now?
Yeah, well, that's what's part of that money I was just telling you about. That obviously is all money that we're not getting from taxes at the present time, even though the good news is that we did get quite a few people back to work up to this point. Now, there's some speculation that there'll be more harsh shutdowns because of the spikes in some of the states right now. But hopefully that won't happen. But, the unemployment situation is a lot better than I think people anticipated it would be. And I know virtually every place I go, people are looking for people to work. So
yes, we're hiring.
Yeah, exactly. So the big thing is at one point, and again, no good deed goes unpunished, I guess, because the part of I thought it was interesting that the federal government went ahead and put in what was it, the $1,200 or not $1,200, but a certain amount per month that people would get
per month.
No, not $1,200, but it was like $600 a month of unemployment compensation above and beyond what the state compensation was in the beginning of this whole thing. It was for a limited period of time, but it just seemed that it was discouraging people from going to work because they could, go on unemployment. But I think we've gotten through the worst of that, and but it was, I think it's incredible. The one problem we had on unemployment issues was that, here's a Department of Labor that normally administers maybe a few thousand claims per week or something like that, and they were to the point where they were looking at hundreds of thousands of claims, and when the pandemic first hit. And so the their phone lines, the total staff was just totally swamped, and it was sort of a mess to get through. And many legislators jumped in to try to be helpful and be guides, if you will, I guess the best thing to try to sort out some of those things. Because unemployment issues are not simple, because there are all sorts of intricacies. So.
Well, I know the frustration of trying to get through to a business and being, on hold I held on for 45 minutes a couple of times, and I finally said.
Well, that's when I had many constituents calling me, and they were concerned, and what could we do? And we were given some numbers to hopefully get some prioritization, but most of them ended up having to wait quite a period of time. If there was a complication with their case, a lot of them went through with, slipped right on through, but some that had just a slightly different sort of parameters, they had to be adjudicated by the department, and that took some time.
Well, one of the things, there was a big disruption in education as well as everything else. But on another topic, or part of this topic of education, when I read in the Messenger that Beth Pierce, the Vermont treasurer, announced that there would be a 24% increase or $32 million increase in teacher pension costs, a retirement fund. Let me see. They want to increase the homestead property tax rate to 9%. Are you kidding? How many people are going to be driven out of Vermont? I have
Exactly. Well, I think that number was thrown out like they have to do early
as a starter
in this cycle, and so I think most of us hope it will not be that amount, but it will be a lot more than we want it to be, and that's that's something I had noted down here too, was that the high cost of our educational establishment. We have to figure out a way to get our arms around it and control it. And so I mean, one of the things I think a lot of people don't realize that it is at the local level in terms of when we vote our budgets in March, and let's say we vote a 4% increase, okay. The state then, or the State Department of Ed, or the tax people, end up having to come up with that money, to then allocate it. It's not that the state is dictating that there's a 4% increase. It's the increase that the local taxpayers are voting in on town meeting day, and I think a lot of people think that it's just all the state's fault and the costs keep on going up. But
we do vote on our school budget. However, what happened several years ago when they changed the way all the funding and the property taxes and everything, I remember one year, Georgia, the town of Georgia, where you and I live, let's see, they voted to raise our property tax or our school tax by maybe 1%, 1.5%, something like that. But at the same time, Burlington raised its taxes by 12%. Now, the people in Georgia have to help pay for the 12% in Burlington. There's something wrong with that. We don't really have control.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's true. They're because of what do you call it, Act 60, or the distribution of.
It was 60 and 68.
Yeah. Okay. The distribution of tax dollars around the state did change that. That we have less control on the overall pie, but we still have control over our portion, and what we need to do is persuade districts to to stay with, to be cognizant of that and to be careful of what they budget, because it comes down on all of us, just like you said.
I wish that there would be an analysis, an evaluation of what is being done in the schools. What is each service, okay? And what is each service costing? And is there a great return on those investments? That's good business.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, I mean, of course, one of the things that people are scratching their head at is that over the last 10 to 20 years, we've lost 20,000 students in the state of Vermont, and our costs for education haven't gone down. They continue to go up. Right. And now part of that is because of, a lot of things have been absorbed by schools, whether you agree with that or not.
Well, they want that.
Yeah, well, to some extent, but I mean, like,
3 and 4-year-olds.
Developmental services and different aspects of children that have special needs and things like that are very, very costly to take care of. And in the past, it wasn't as clear that the schools were the ones to take care of it.
Exactly.
So on that one, I really don't have, in my mind, a fantastic solution for it. But we need to study it carefully and come up with somehow to control these ballooning costs.
Well, what are schools for? Education.
Right.
And when we have students graduating from high school who get to college and need remedial reading,
Yeah.
and when you look at what we're paying
Yeah.
for education, there's something wrong there.
Well, you think we should be getting a better bang for our buck. There's no two ways about
Absolutely.
that.
I mean, people work hard for their money,
Right.
and I'm sure they're willing, that they're paying taxes for the school system,
Mm-hmm.
because the children are the future,
Right.
and we want them to each be as successful and productive citizens as they're
Yeah,
capable
sure.
of being. So they need a good, solid education. But when there are so many other kinds of services that have been thrown into the education system, and then I think we've lost our way. I really do.
It's going to be an interesting thing coming out of this pandemic with the use of so much, distance learning, that is that going to be adopted on a longer term basis as a model? The problem is it's going to, or from what I've understood, is there some students thrive on it. The distance learning is great for them because they're excellent students already, and they do beautifully.
You mean computer?
The problem are those students that don't relate well to the distance learning.
Computers.
Yeah, well, that's really what I'm saying. But
See, and I think that if I were queen, which you and I both know I'm not,
Mm-hmm.
and never will be, but I wouldn't have computers in the classroom except
Yeah.
for maybe a rare project
Right.
or something. But otherwise, the teacher needs to be teaching. That's what they go to school for.
Right. So, but I've always thought there should be a better way to use computers, so to not, how shall I say, some of the redundant things you do that people used to call rote learning, that could be done a lot better by computer than probably a teacher. But what you want is the teacher to inspire the student in moving forward and learning as much as they can and being excited about the topic and the subject material.
Well, when you say rote learning, what that really means is using your brain.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And when you get on the computer, you just type in something and there it is for you. Okay, you haven't had to really do your homework, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when I go into a store and I order a coffee or, I don't know, something with it, and the young person behind the cash register can't figure out the change.
Want the change, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, and they're looking at the machine to, get the answer. That makes me very sad.
Oh, yeah, I agree that there seems to be things that, that children or students are not learning as well as they did in the past. But
Memorization is important.
I'm sorry?
Memorization is
Yeah.
important.
Right. So, or can be anyway. It's certainly a tool in the learning experience.
Yes, it's a part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
What other topics did you have in mind? The renewable industrial complex?
I'm sorry, what's that?
The renewable industrial complex?
I'm sorry, you're going to have to explain what that is. Okay. Yeah.
That is all about these renewable organizations or businesses benefiting from the way things are unfolding with tax credits and sales tax exemptions. You and I are subsidizing somebody else's purchase of an electric car. What?
Of a what, an electric car? You
Yeah.
said? Right, okay.
Why are you and I paying for your neighbor to buy a car? If you want the car, go out and buy it. But why are we in the middle of this?
Well, I think at least the rationale for it, I'm not saying I necessarily agree with it, but the rationale is to incentivize people to obviously go to more renewable forms of energy for their car. And at least, a few years ago, electric cars were quite expensive. They have come down in cost, and I presume that will continue to come down. But that's sometimes what government does. Again, I'm not saying it's right or wrong.
It's using
But to go ahead and incentivize a new type of behavior, because then that's really what it is, okay? So,
That's ridiculous.
yeah.
It's absolutely ridiculous. I think government needs to allow a legal type of business to do its sales, marketing, whatever, and build up their business. But I think the state's goal in Vermont anyway, is to, it has a goal to have so many electric cars. How many? I have it here somewhere. By a certain year. Where is that? Excuse me while I thought I wrote that down. Oh, yes. The state goal is to have 50,000 electric vehicles on Vermont roads by 2025. We're almost up into 21. So 4 more years, basically, they want to have 50,000 electric cars on the roads. I just say let the people make their choices and pay for whatever they want, but don't force the rest of the people to subsidize that. That's
Well, I mean, obviously, you're getting at one of the big differences in the two parties system is that there is a difference of opinion on the climate issue going forward. In other words, how much money and time should be spent to reduce carbon emissions, and that's really what's at the heart of the electric cars. They believe that will reduce the carbon emissions. So it's one of those things we can debate, but it's sort of a reality that half the one party feels very strongly about this, and I think a number of people in my party also feel pretty strongly about trying to control unneeded excesses in carbon footprint.
But doesn't Vermont have the second lowest carbon footprint in the nation?
I believe so. I'm not,
That's what I've been told.
okay.
And I don't have anything specific to back that up, but that's what I've been told. And so why are we turning everything upside down? Vermont has one of the biggest sources of income in Vermont for the state is tourism. So I want to know from these people, the liberals, the socialists, whatever you want to call them, all this, renewable stuff that they want to promote and put into effect. How many people are going to continue to come to Vermont and bring us that tourism money when they look out at a field and they see 50 solar panels, okay? They're going to go, yuck. And hopefully we're not going to have a lot of windmills around the state. We're just ruining a beautiful state.
Yeah. I always think of, and this is just a side comment, but I was thinking back in, let's say, the 1600s and all of the windmills that started going up in Holland, those beautiful things. Most people think they're quite beautiful, the windmills in Holland. Now, they don't necessarily think that ours are beautiful because they're modern ones. But anyway, it was just an aside. I understand what you're saying. There, certain people object to some of these things that are becoming part of our landscape now. Okay.
And we have such a beautiful state. We should capitalize on that instead of doing these types of...
That's one thing I had on my list was what do we do to try to attract more people to come to Vermont and to grow our population?
Not
because
that.
one of the things that worried me over the last 2 cycles I've been down in Montpelier is what the demographic tidal wave that is hitting us right now in the state of Vermont. Diminishing population, and as that continues, the tax burden is going to be shared by fewer and fewer people in the state of Vermont, which will have the sort of opposite effect, which will have more people deciding not to stay here or to come here.
I already have friends who have left.
Yeah. No, I know. And again, it's not a simple issue. I know there have been initiatives on the part of the governor and the administration to try to attract people by giving them some money to move to Vermont. And that seems to have had some success amongst certain people anyway. Normally, techie people that can move pretty easily and move in and get a job here in the state of Vermont. So, but we have to do something to accomplish it. I know one of the bills, I was attending our National Guard caucus this morning, and one of the bills that they're, of course, pushing is to exempt the retirement pay of military people
From taxation?
taxes. Right. So, but you can see, it's sort of fraught with issues because if you have one group of people paying less taxes, it means that tax burden does get passed on to somebody else. The reason for it, obviously the reason people are pushing for that is that they believe it would attract more people to come and retire in the state of Vermont and spend more money. And the point that our Adjutant General made this morning was that, of course, many full-time military people retire in late 30s and early 40s and usually start a brand new career and raise a family and all that. And those are the people we'd love to get to the state because they do have 2 sources of income, and their taxes would be higher as a result of that in the total thing. Anyway, so it's a complex problem. I don't have an answer, but that will be a bill I'm sure will be introduced, and it'll have its pros and cons, and people will be, obviously concerned about it. But the National Guard does contribute. With the Air Wing and the Army Brigade, contributes a significant amount of money to this state, and a lot of it again comes from federal government and is spent here in the state of Vermont. So that's one reason I joined the National Guard caucus, and the other, obviously, I'm former military myself, so I'm very interested in how
And
things
thank
go
you
with
for
the National
that.
Guard. Well, thank you. I appreciate
I
it.
love our military and our police,
There we go.
law enforcement and national military service. That, that's really a gift to all of us
Yeah,
when
I think
people
so. Yeah.
sign up for those careers. Well, my suggestion, not that anybody's asking, believe me.
Well, I think they're looking for a lot of suggestions, so go ahead.
They probably wouldn't like this one. But I think an overall analysis of state spending, what is critical, what is, well, this is nice, but it's not mandatory or essential. We'd like to be able to do this, but we're in a place right now where we are hurting financially, and we need to start rebuilding and kind of putting some of these expenditures over to the side for a while. I don't know how many state employees we have, but I think it's a lot for a small state.
I think it's in the 6,000 somewhere or something like that. I may be wrong. I just number that sort of popped into my head there. So, yeah. So, go ahead.
Let's see. Did I have other things? Oh, I don't expect you to comment on this, but I couldn't help but bring it up. I read this in the Messenger this week. Good old Ben and Jerry's recognizes Colin Kaepernick with a vegan flavor of its ice cream. The man who wouldn't stand to honor our American flag, and they're honoring him. What does that tell you about them?
Yeah. So I read that same article, and so it was, what can I say? Obviously, we have very divergent opinions on issues in our state and in our country. And my concern is that we are so evenly split that it seems that way anyway, that are we ever going to get to a point where the majority really, how shall I say it, can make some headway because of the tremendous division. But anyway, I just like our election, as close as it was, I mean, incredibly close. And and of course, I'm sure there are many people on both sides that said that it really went the wrong way, but I do believe it went the wrong way as far as who should have won or whatever, but that's
Are you
that's
talking
my
about the
personal
presidency?
view. Yes.
Okay.
So, but anyway, that's you brought up an issue that showed a big difference. I'm trying to think where I was going. What was your question again?
What was my question?
Oh, you did that one.
Well, I just feel that it's important for us to, well, the people the 6,000 people or a percentage of them who are overseeing government operations, departments, et cetera, need to really be mindful of the pressure and the stress that they're putting on the hardworking people of Vermont. Mm-hmm. And we have a big elderly population who are, most of them, I would say, not employed anymore. And we just need to be really fiscally responsible and not just say, oh, here's a big pot of money, how can we play with it today? You know, there are people paying the price for all of these special programs and everything that we can't afford.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course, that's the real nub of the whole legislative process. There are people that feel strongly about certain programs and things that we should do, and other people that feel they're not as important. So, you know, how do you decide? I mean, that's usually what an election is about.
Well,
You know, if you, how should I say it, one particular program is usually supported by one of the parties or the other, or many are supported by both. So, and they're the ones that definitely get through and that we support. But every once in a while, we get certain ones that are, how should I say it, or cause certain level of division and rancor between people because they feel something is so important that it can't be left out of the budget.
Well, by my accounting, I believe that about 70% of the legislature is Democrat. We have a caller. How nice is that? Caller, welcome to the program. What's on your mind?
Yes, Linda.
Yes.
I've got a few comments that I'd like to make.
Okay.
And I'm watching your show currently. And Representative Rosenquist mentioned the fact about the election turnout. And I often get accused of not being happy because my candidate didn't win. And that's not the reason I'm mostly unhappy. I'm mostly unhappy with the election fraud that's been going on. And for our dead brothers and sisters that have paid the ultimate sacrifice, for them to leave us with a country that we can't vote fair in, it's kind of disheartening at the wood.
Yes, it is. You're right.
Now,
It sounds like Norm to me. Okay.
It is.
All right. So hi, Norm.
Yep.
And I understand where your comment, and I think many of us feel the same way, that even if it wouldn't change the outcome of this particular election, why aren't we looking more closely at preventing this type of abuse and fraud? I think in certain cases, and some cases relatively small, in some cases it could be tremendous. So anyway, I think we share a common thought on that aspect.
And if I may,
it's funny you mentioned that, Carl, because Harry Reid, when he was Senate Majority Leader, he created some traps that the Democrats fell into later on. So this very same trap, the Democrats could fall into it again. So in time to come. Also, I do want to make a comment on I see on tonight's news that we have a new chief of police in St. Albans. I need to comment on that. I worked with the gentleman's father-in-law when I worked with Handy's, and he often referred affectionately to his son-in-law as Super Cop. And Morris is the kind of cop that doesn't write tickets to better himself or create paperwork. If you do something wrong, you will get a ticket from him. But he's not an individual to just write tickets. And St. Albans couldn't have got a more fantastic leader in the police chief as Morris Lamont. He's going to be a fantastic chief.
I can't wait to meet him. I'm thinking that one day I'm going to stop in there or maybe call the office and see if I could have an appointment with him. I've done that with the sheriff, stopped in, and he was kind enough to say, come on in, to my office, and we chatted for a while. But I'd like to meet this new police chief. It's official now, I understand, from you.
That's right, and like I say, he's excelled in every area he worked in the Vermont State Police. He was on the riot squad. He was on the SWAT team. He was on he was a fire investigator for a while. He's done basically everything, and he's the real cop. He's the real deal.
Well, we need to ignore, if we can, what's happening around the country with the great disrespect for law enforcement. These people are out there putting their lives on the line many times. And if an instance happens when someone is breaking the law and maybe creating harm for other people or major destruction, and then they get into an altercation with a police officer, they deserve to be handled whereby the police can do what they need to do to stop this person. And if the person really acts out in a horrible way and they end up dying, well, that's a sad thing. But it's also the outcome.
It's interesting
Go ahead.
It's interesting you say that because due to the fact that we have one bad apple in a group or so, or a slight handful of them, if we were to do the same thing with our representatives in Congress, would we defund them all because we had some that we didn't agree with?
Yeah, pretty likely, right?
Right. I'll let you go. It's interesting time. You got a good guest on, Carl. I'm sure Carl's going to give us a lot of information, and I supported Carl, and I'll continue to support him.
Me too, and I try to get guests who will do that, and I'm very fortunate that people want to join me on the show and be able to reach out to the public. It's a public service. This station is a real asset, Northwest Access TV, and I'm honored to be a part of it. I'm very grateful that this opportunity came my way. And
well, I read 8 books leading up to this election because I felt I owe it to you folks to vote right. As much as you'd go to a surgeon with a dull knife, I wanted to know what I was dealing with.
Well, thank you for calling in, Norm, as always.
Take care,
Okay,
Norm.
you're
Thank
welcome.
you.
Happy
Carl.
New Year. Christmas.
You.
Yeah, Norm pays attention to what's going on, like I try to do, and we care about this country. We care about the people, the citizens of this country, and the people who are employers. All of those who are working really hard to try to not only enhance their own lives, but in the process, they enhance the lives of their employees and the public at large. And we need to get back to really having what's the word I want? The principles and the standards that this country was founded on. Personal responsibility, that's number one, because you have rights. You have rights as an individual. You have the right to work. And work is the great thing in your life because it can get you where you want or need to go. So I think we need to instill that in our young people. And I was talking with somebody the other day who said, education begins in the home. And boy, my mom knew that, which I've said before on the show. So what else do you think is important for, that might be coming up in this legislative session that the people ought to at least have a sense of?
Well, one thing that will be coming up is the Proposition 5 for the second go-around has to be approved by 2 bienniums successively. And so it was approved last year, and that'll be coming again and come through my committee. And that has to do with making a change in the Constitution that essentially makes abortion essentially, I don't want to say the incorrectly, but essentially would allow abortion up to the day of delivery. Okay, and
they want to put that into our Vermont Constitution.
Right. They believe because of concerns that at the national level that the current law would possibly be overturned in the future, and they wanted to assure that Vermont would be, have laws in place that would further protect that right of abortion. So,
But where does the right to abortion even come into play? You know, the right, the responsibility you have, not that accidents can't happen, even with the best of intentions, okay? A pregnancy can happen even though you're trying to be careful. But on the other hand, if you're totally irresponsible about it, or having an intimate relationship with someone that you don't intend to pursue a legal relationship with, and you end up getting pregnant, well, then you have a responsibility for that child.
yeah, as I say, this is what divides so much of our nation right now, the two sides of pro-life and pro-abortion. And I've introduced a bill, or will again, this session, but I call it, it's a fetal personhood bill, that at 24 weeks or older, a fetus becomes a person in the eyes of the law and in the eyes of the state, and has all the protections that you or I or any of us have in terms of being a person and under our Constitution. So obviously this would be running absolutely opposite of what Proposition 5 does. But I thought I know there are a lot of people that feel obviously that life begins at conception, or at least a few days thereafter when the fetal heartbeat is noted. But I thought this bill could be a compromise between the parties that believe so strongly against abortion and those that believe that that abortion should be a protected right up to the day of delivery. And because this would mean that basically an abortion after 24 weeks wouldn't happen, because they'd have to take into consideration the personhood of the fetus and the protections that would offer. It was interesting because when I was proposing this bill, certain people in the legislature, in fact, one doctor in the legislature, he just tells me late-term abortions just do not happen. And yet I have other people that tell me that's not true, and that there are late-term abortions that do happen. And so by introducing this bill, I wanted to try to get the discussion moving forward on some compromise on this issue. And anyway, that's just, you brought up the subject, or I did. Okay, all right. So, anyway.
Well, I'm glad you introduced a bill. I personally feel that there's too much lack of integrity and personal responsibility in society today. And we need to start raising our children with integrity and accountability for their actions. And when, as I have learned, sixth graders, 11 or 12-year-olds, can go into the nurse's office at school and get condoms. Mm-hmm. Are you kidding me? That's like saying, have a free-for-all.
Yeah.
You're 11 years old now, have a free-for-all. And if you get pregnant, don't worry. We're going to put this Prop 5 in the Constitution, and you'll be protected. So just, you know.
Well, the bill itself that granted greater access to birth control, such as condoms in schools, really the main impetus of that is to try to avoid unnecessary abortion.
See, and I think it's saying, go ahead.
Well, I mean, that's your opinion. So, I mean,
I have one, yes.
I probably share a lot of that, but I'm just saying that the proponents of this bill felt that because accidents will happen or different things happen, and like you said earlier, and, what do you do with somebody that gets pregnant and they, are they going to go through with the full term delivery? and then give it up for adoption. I mean, many of us would think that would be the appropriate thing to do. But there are a lot of people that feel that is an infringement on a woman's freedoms, and that they should.
They're not women. They're young girls.
I know. Anyway, I don't want to cast.
Well,
But I mean, I think that's the big issue before us. And so when you say because they're giving out condoms, you know, I mean, they could go to the store and buy
that's a
one
free. Here's a condom. Go have sex.
Well, as they say, I mean, there's a difference of opinion on that. So
Well,
I would tend to be more in your camp probably, but I would, you know, it's a big issue.
it's
in
about
society
educating. And instead of handing out condoms, allow Vermont Right to Life in the schools like they allow Planned Parenthood in the schools. They won't allow Vermont Right to Life. Go and talk with the young people about life and about how you live your life and your accountability for your actions and all of these things that I think, unless parents are doing it, I don't think the children are learning it. And of course, you need people in your life who live by those standards as well, because they're setting an example for the young people to follow. But anyway, there are so many issues where there are diverse opinions, and I'm heartbroken that the hospital, a place for healing and life-saving, is performing abortions in Burlington. I think that is just awful. And I wrote a letter to the woman at the hospital who was involved in that, because I used to work there as a nurse. And I always thought of the hospital as a place of healing and life-saving. And I was proud to work there. But I said, now when I see what's happening, I just can't believe it. I think they have better work to do. So anyway, we're down to about 2.5 minutes.
Really? Wow,
Yes,
boy.
time flies when you're
I
having
know.
fun, Carl. So is there anything burning on your mind that you wanted to be sure to mention?
Well, just another bill that I'm reintroducing, and this one did gain a little traction before the COVID pandemic hit, and then this is a dog bill, meaning it would provide for strict liability for a dog owner if their dog attacks a human being or livestock or another dog, and that it is your responsibility. Your dog did it. Well, I mean, presumably you'd have to demonstrate that your dog did it, but in most cases that's pretty straightforward, and because right now there are just too many cases where a dog running free attacks somebody's dog or a human being.
Well, I appreciate what you're trying to do with that, but then what occurred to me as you were explaining it, so is that different from a child who goes away from his own home and really harms another person? Are the parents responsible?
Yes. That's the way I see
Legally?
it. Well, I mean, I believe so. I mean, your child,
I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, and I guess I shouldn't be asking that question. But I saw a parallel there.
Oh, okay. Well, hopefully there aren't a lot of children going around committing
Oh, I
these.
hope not, too. I hope we're doing a better job of parenting and schooling than that. But I thank you for your service to our state, your military service, as well as your service in the legislature. Sometimes I wish I were back there, and other times I say, oh, no, I wouldn't like that, because I have strong beliefs, and so many of them are being disrespected down there now. 70% of the House and 70% of the Senate, approximately, are liberal. So we need to do a lot better job of getting conservative candidates to run for office in this state and get things balanced out where you feel like at least you have a chance to get something done. So anyway, we're out of time, Carl. Thank you so much for joining me on the show.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome. Have a blessed Christmas with your lovely wife, and come back again sometime.
Okay. Hey,
Folks,
thank you, Linda.
Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you again next week. Have a great week, and it's so good to walk through or drive through St. Albans. It's so beautiful, and it's uplifting, and it's just what we need right now. So thank you to those in St. Albans who are responsible for creating that positive attitude. With that, good night.